Welcome to Mental Wealth, the podcast to invest in your mind. Here I will help you make sense of your mind and behaviours, giving you the tools to have your best life. There is so much to share, so let's get into this episode and explore another great topic. Welcome to episode 48. And in this episode, we are going to explore that big topic that I like to explore, mental health, but we're going to do it with an expert and also with a different angle, because we're going to be really homing in on stress and whether the stress is a good thing for us, not, and how we manage it. So I'd like to firstly welcome Sean Liddell as my special guest today.
Thanks, Alison. Wonderful to be here. Great to chat with you.
Brilliant.
Love chatting to everybody about things like this. So it's great to be here.
Brilliant. Well, tell everyone a little bit about you first.
Gosh, right, okay. Potted history. Need to make this really quick. So in this life, I'm a mental health first aid instructor trainer. I specialise in suicide prevention. So I work with the National Centre for Suicide Prevention, mindfulness practitioner with the British Mindfulness Institute, a couple of coaching qualifications, co-founded a charity in Wrexham in North Wales before Ryan Reynolds got there. So just so you don't think trying to hang on his coattails. So we're doing some fantastic work up in Wrexham in North Wales because we need to, because mental health is not great there. And before that, I worked for 20 years in corporate, in very, very, very high stress, very toxic workplaces, brilliant fun, but equally toxic in some places as well. Before I had the opportunity through a little bit of a bad experience in 2008 to change my life.
I love that. And I think, this is something that we need to talk about, isn't it? That stuff can happen that's difficult. We can suddenly notice that we are in a toxic environment, or we're in a job that we actually don't like, or in a relationship that it really isn't working for us. And sometimes it does have to get really bad first, doesn't it? So that we can then make that push, make that shove. Yeah.
There's an old story, and I won't tell the story. I'll just give you the punchline of it that somebody told me years ago. And it's stuck with me ever since. And it was kind of around, why does that dog on the porch not move? Because it's just been whining and crying for days. And the owner said, well, he sat on a nail. And so the guy says, well, why doesn't he move? And the response is, well, it simply doesn't hurt enough yet. And that seems to be the same with us.
Yeah.
So if I give you the option between pleasure and pain, it's pain that will make you move more than pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. So I think sometimes it is good for us to remember, for the listeners and anyone else that's in this space, to think about that it might have to get really uncomfortable or really yucky before you make those changes. So I think sometimes we're so frightened of it being horrible, aren't we, that we do avoid things. And for me, some of the best things that have ever happened to me have happened because something awful happened. And I think we need to just remind ourselves of that, to not be afraid to take that step forward that might lead you to somewhere that's really scary and we don't know. But I think your story, my story, and lots of others out there is that something awful had to happen to make us move. So that's something that I think we can have as a little anchor for today's conversation. But obviously what we want to talk really about is stress, which is this topic that you like to talk about, Sean, and how we can use good stress and how we can make it better.
Yeah.
So tell us.
Yeah.
Tell us. And you've got a book that's just been launched, so we need to shout about that. There it is. Thrive, not just survive. I love that. Brilliant. So we need to talk about that. Obviously, we'll be putting the links in the show notes, but tell us a little bit more about how you see stress.
Stress, it's a fascinating subject. And every single time I talk about it, and I do a very simple exercise, and the results are always the same. And I have one simple question, and for the listeners, I'd like them to think about answering it for themselves now. And the question is, what stresses you? And it's simply that, what stresses you? So first of all, when I say that, people do the interpretation and translation with the communication and mistranslate it, mishear, miscommunicate. And we go to automatically to what stresses you out. And so people go down a negative path straight away. And even if they don't, 99.9% of the time, I get responses that are negative. So what stresses me? Oh, it's that interview, it's work pressures, it's not enough time, it's financial distress, it's all sorts of physical health, mental health, It's all sorts of different things that impact us on a day-to-day basis, our relationships, family, friends, and partners. And we only ever think about it as in the negative state because we're conditioned to think about it. Nobody's ever paused, or we don't, rather. It's not that nobody has, and that's incorrect, but we don't. We're not conditioned to pause. We're not conditioned to reflect. We're not conditioned to think for ourselves and just really examine and get the evidence and think, well, exactly as you said, Alison, could this actually be helpful for me? Could this thing actually enhance my growth, my resilience, and enable me to become stronger? Because that's what 2008, 2010 did for me. It was horrible. Like 2 years of just pain, emotional, mental, physical, spiritual pain. And what's come out of it is a complete change of life and something that I would go through again and again and again. So yeah, it's a fascinating subject that we absolutely need to discuss.
We do. So I think there we go. We've landed it again. For me, the thing that's sort of rattling there about what we've just said there is sometimes it's okay, isn't it? You know, we need to have these situations that get us maybe asking more questions about what is going on for us. But let's keep on that topic of your question and what kind of things people, when they've got over the first result, which is all bad things, their focus is on bad. And, you know, I think as a nation, people say, oh, you know, you don't want to be stressed, it's bad for you. Mm-hmm. But when you really ask them the question, what kind of things are you thinking? What would you like to hear from people when you ask that question?
Oh, what would I like to hear? I would. There's one thing that I'd love to hear, which is, do you know, Sean, my stress. I can't manage. I am unable to manage my stress right now, and I feel like it's affecting me so much that I've made an appointment to see a counsellor. That I've self-referred to a support service, that I'm going to Andy's Man Club or 1,000 other female, male support groups. I've made an appointment to go and see, pop in with Ruby Wax on the Frazzle Cafe, a online Zoom meeting space to do exactly the same thing, just to help de-stress or manage my stress and move back from distress to the good stress, which is called eustress, a term brought about in the 60s. That's the ultimate self-diagnosis, self-referral, self-management.
I think you raise a brilliant point, and it's something that I talk about a lot is, you know, we're not saying at any point that we are trying to not have these things like stress and sadness and worry and, you know, any emotion. We want a range. We want to have happy emotions, but we also want to have, and we will have. But I think the word that stands out for me is manage. What we're looking for is ways to manage it. And I think what I'm hearing you say is what you'd like people to do is to acknowledge that actually it's tough, that at the moment, whatever they're doing, whatever's going on around them is a bit difficult. So you want them to acknowledge, be aware of it. Because my big thing is, unless you're aware of it, you can't change it. So it's not a scientific figure, but I often talk about 80% of changing anything is being aware of what is going on at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Brené Brown, the wonderful Brené Brown says, with empathy, she says something like, if I can paraphrase, because I can never remember quotes directly, people always use this one term, and it's never helpful, and it's at least. You know, and we all do it, and we all go into it, and I do it. You know, we all fall into that. Oh well, at least, and we all fall into this fixing trap when. And we are taught in so many professions, counselling therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, mental health, first aid, etc., to not fix it if we don't need to fix it. Sometimes listening is the best thing that we can do, and sometimes just empathizing, which was what Brené Brown talks about in this fantastic clip. And just saying, gosh, that sounds really hard, and just being there. And just accepting the vulnerability that the person's feeling, and reaching inside yourself to feel something similar can be incredibly, what's the word? It's not a fixing thing, is it? It's just It's just, and it's not relaxing. It's kind of that space in the middle. And it does create that safe space, psychologically safe space, but it's like time, space don't exist, and it's just okay to be there.
Yeah. I think sometimes I often encourage people to sit with discomfort. Just sit and see, just literally, just physically sit down or go for a walk, but sit with that horrible feeling instead of trying to run away from it.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
something that I think we're talking about here, which is really important, is this acknowledgement, this space that we then say, actually, I am not in my best at all. And being able to find that, how many people do you talk to, Sean? I certainly do, who are literally nearly broken because they are pushed and pushed and pushed, and their capacity is incredible because they are pushing. But actually, how are they? I mean, I know I've been in this space, actually, if I'm being honest, recently. And I think, just noticing what actually is going on in the body, in the mind, and that running like a sort of machine that's, I was liken it to, when you were a kid and somebody at the top of a hill held your hand and ran down with you, holding your hand. Do you remember that? I used to hate that.
Yeah.
You feel out of control, and yet you can do it, but you just feel like you're just going to go head over heels. And I think sometimes just for us all to pause and just think what actually is going on, and then where is the good? Let's talk about a bit more about that, Sean. What's your take on where's the good in it? What can we use it for?
Yeah, that's a great question. The research shows us that stress is like a muscle. So the more that we work it, the better we get at managing it. The more we can build the stress container within us. And it is about recognition. It is about awareness, and it is we do not grow as a being without experiencing the bad stuff. And again, this comes down to conditioning. We're taught to be afraid of failure and have this fear of failure. When actually, what should we do? What the best people, the best corporations, organizations, people, charities, NHS departments that I work with, they're the ones that concentrate on the people and the positive results that they can gain. And yes, they still fail, but they learn from it. And it's about communication. It's about, the simple 3-step strategy that I use and have used for over a decade now is empowerment, accountability, and ownership. Empowerment. I will empower whoever I work with to do anything and everything, and I will push them, and I will put them under significant stress, good stress, but I will push them onto the edges of the comfort zone or into the stretch zone, however you look at it, so that they can feel a little bit of distress, but manageable distress, to build their awareness, to feel what those physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual symptoms feel like, look like, so that they can build their recognition. So this helps and all future times. And then on the result of it, once properly motivated, but made accountable for their own actions, then that's when ownership really happens. And that's when growth happens. And you see that people will then be prepared to talk to you, to use these words that they wouldn't use before, like I need help, or put the hand up, and seek support, and look for things that can help them, and then grow and do things that they'd never do before. I live up near New Brighton, and there's lots of people do. I do the cold water swimming with a bunch of people, and there's always people around. And obviously, you know about this, Alison. And there's just a wonderful community, and there's people doing sound baths and yoga on the beach and all sorts of things that I never would have done in my corporate life, and I would have referred to as tree hugging hippie stuff. When actually in this life, I found that the tree hugging hippie stuff actually works, but also has science behind it, has usually thousands of years worth of data behind it. So yeah, it's my want for everybody is absolutely and I will push people in order for them to build their own resilience, become and build their awareness and acceptance.
I think something that stuck out for me in what you said there, Sean, is this sort of track that we get into. So we're in our lane, we're doing our thing. So you might be in the corporate world, you might be running your own business, wherever you are, you might be unemployed, who knows? You might be just in that place.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the way the human brain is wired, we use judgment as filters. So we have to filter out information and we judge things. So we say, oh no, not for me, or like, you're woohoo for the sound bath type thing. But one of the things that I think is a pausing technique, is to just look at things slightly differently. So rather than just have that instant auto, which is there, that instant auto, oh no, that's not for me.
Mm.
I wonder whether, the more of things that are available, the more aware we are of the choices, is that we need to just be a bit more curious about what something might do. Go and try it. Everything isn't for everyone. I mean, definitely, for some people, it isn't for them. But when we make those real strong, no, not for me, we really might be missing out on something that could work. And I think that's where, for me, it feels like a technique is to just be curious and just say, well, okay, then I'll go. I often talk to people come up with things in sessions with me, and they'll say, well, I've never tried that. I might try that. And I always think, well, go and see if it works for you. It obviously does for lots of people over here, but unless you go and try it, you won't know. And I think there's something in there, isn't there, about not just having a judgment of, oh no, that's not for me. What if it is? What if it is? What if it is for you?
I think I totally agree, and I look at myself and I think, if I knew then what I know now, I can't help thinking that, because it does come back to me at certain points. I would never go back to my old life, because I love what I'm doing and this life now, my running my own business. But I think learning. I've just lost my train of thought. Sorry. Reflecting back and thinking about what you could have done now, and taking the learning from it. I think using that, the period of unemployment that I had was 2 years. I had 2 years out of work, and lost everything. And I would never replace that. At the time, I would have done anything to replace it, because it was so painful. But looking back on that now, it's not that I'm going to get to that point again, because I've built those awareness pieces. Trying something, building that ability to say yes. It's like my thoughts come back. Yeah. So the Dice Man, can't remember his name, the author Luke somebody wrote a great book, The Dice Man, and did make certain decisions based on dice, the outcome of dice. Yes Man, the film, which I think was taken from another book or maybe based on that one, with Jim Carrey, which, although funny, obviously did bring these completely random and different and more positive changes. And it is about, instead of aiming towards safety, it is about just being manageable with our safety, but still allowing yourself to go into that place that is scary. And to do those things that, our biases, our unconscious biases, will absolutely say, "Oh, don't do that. You're very much this. You're a business person. You're running your own business. What will people think?" And I've got loads of people into the Marine Lake down at New Brighton, and at West Kirby. Loads of different people, and for some people it's a one-off, and they say, "Oh, I've done it. I'm never doing it again," and that's fantastic. Like you say, it's not for them. But they've done it and they feel a great sense of achievement, and they'll go on to do different things. And just by doing one different thing, we'll go on. It can be a multiplier, and we can go on to do many, many different things. And this goes back to the old saying, doesn't it? And I always use this one. It's because it's so true. If you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. It's so true. And I was an absolute product of that. And I made it to a certain level in corporate. I was chasing the car, the money, all that sort of stuff, and I got it to a certain extent, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't truly happy. And in fact, at some years I was absolutely miserable, but I was stuck on that hamster wheel. And now what I do, I was going to say try again. That's one of the things to do. Cut out the word try, just do it. One of the things I do is if you ask me to do something, my automatic go-to is change from, let me have to think about that, I'll get back to you, to, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, when can we do it? When's good? When's good for you?
Yeah, I
So
love that.
I'm dying to see what the results are. I won't keep doing it if I don't like it, but I'm certainly going to give it a go.
I think this feels like a real thread that comes out in so many conversations that I have and on here. Every guest I've had, and we've homed in on a slight topic, if you like, just to give it a bit of structure. But actually, so often we just need to go for it, don't we? All of us, whatever that might be, myself included, is just find whatever the right combination of things is. So sometimes it is managing, if you're burnt out, so you're managing your stress, you've got to look after yourself first, and then have a go and find the right people, the right tribe, the right combination of things. I don't know. It's a jigsaw, isn't it? But actually, when I listen to when I'm almost running in my mind, a lot of the conversations I've had during this year while I've been making these podcasts is almost the same thing. It's just go for it. Our brains are very, very powerful, and they will have us thinking things. They will have us doubting. They'll have us comparing ourselves to others. They'll have us worried about what everyone else is thinking. And this is just stress. This is bad stress. This is not helpful. But actually, if you just say, do you know what? I'm going to do it. So whatever it is that you're not doing, whoever's listening to this podcast, go and do it. Find a way.
Fabulous. Fabulous. It's called stress inoculation. There's a practice called stress inoculation, which is about putting yourself under short bursts of focused stress. Which is exactly what you're talking about. Put yourself in there, put yourself in the ring, but you're managing the situation. So you're not totally out of control, because control obviously features massively in stress. So you put yourself in an area of lower control through to no control, but for a period of time. So there's always some control. And great growth comes from that. And then we decide, yeah, that's good, keep doing it. Yeah, I didn't get much for that. Great, it's not working. Ditch that, find something else.
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? Be in the space that's right for you, because we are all different. What some person finds really energizing and amazing is not for the next person. And I think that's where we end up saying, oh, well, I can't do that, so I'm not very good, or that means I'm not, no, it doesn't mean that at all. It literally doesn't mean that. It just means that's not for you. Finding, I love that idea of seeing it as I'm choosing to be in a stressful space, in a new space for a period of time. I love that. And I know I've had experiences where I know I've done that. I did a big walk last year, and that I didn't know I was going to be able to do it, but I did it I walked for 12 hours, and at times it was hard, but wow, what I learned about myself and things in that short burst, if though 12 hours wasn't quite short, but
yeah. It's so true though. It's any or all of these things, and it can be a stressful situation from an interview, a new piece of work, talking to and answering. It seems stupid. Answering the phone or actually phoning somebody is still to this day one of my weaknesses, and something that stresses me, puts me into distress, and I will procrastinate like crazy over send an email, WhatsApp, text, or anything else. No problem at all. But actually phoning somebody, oh. So one of the things that you can do is a short and very easy visualization is thinking of things. And for me, it's a visualization of the Nike symbol,
Yep.
the swoosh. So thinking of visualizing that, white on a black background, black on a white background, whatever stands out more. And of course, the tagline for Nike is "Just do it." So whenever it comes to, oh gosh, I've got to make that phone call, I've got to ring that person, and it can be for really good stuff. It can be for new business and a massive contract or whatever else. But picking that phone up still, for me, which is a stupid everyday thing, but it's still something for me. It's still a barrier. So now what do? I use different methods. I'll probably do it at the start of the day because it's always easier first thing in the morning for me. But I'll pick the phone. I'll see it on my to-do list. I'm going to cross it off. So I'll pick the phone up and then I'll think, just do it. I'll see the Nike swoosh and then I'll just do it. I won't think. I'll just bang into it, not allow this thing that you're an expert on to intrude and go, whoa, hang on a sec, Sean, are you doing the right thing? It's going to be a bit dodgy, this. You're going to be out of control here. So yeah, it's just do it. And that short visualization works for me.
Yeah. I think for me, it's what this podcast is all about for the listeners and for us as well, Sean. We're all in this somewhere. Everyone, as trained as my mind is, I can still doubt myself. I can still be unsure. But it's the moving forward for me. It's like I call it the bounce back. And my bounce back is going to be quicker. My ability to go, that's not going to help me. This will, and then push myself. But I think just being kind, just taking your time, and let's all just do it, whatever it is. Can you imagine if we were all doing what we loved? Oh my goodness, the world would be such a better place, wouldn't it?
Yeah. This is, BSI, British Standards Institute, have instigated a new ISO global standard, ISO 450003, concerning psychological safety in the workplace. So this stuff that we're talking about, it's not just for people who are into this or mental health or anything else. This is for everybody, because this is where the health and safety exec, BSI, this is where organizations, global corporates have realized that this safety thing actually exists. It's a thing. Men and women do it differently to each other. And men can and desperately need to learn from women. The power of communication, the power of talking and especially listening, and sitting in non-judgment. Men traditionally instinctively go into a more aggressive stance to handle stress, whereas women are more accepting and more curious. So that curiosity comes in. But I think this is something where we all can learn from each other. And this comes into the different work sectors, the different organizations, as well as different people from different backgrounds. I am so fortunate to have worked with people from every single background for the last almost 15 years now. And that's where my education really began after my corporate career ended. So yeah, this thing, it's so helped me. This lovely stress thing, fantastic, love it.
But I think what you described there is what I do hear a lot of people I work with, a lot of the businesses I work in, is when you're in it. So people talk about being in the corporate. And I think when you're in it, it means you are just on a track. You're just doing. They're working so hard. But actually, when we are able to, and a lot of the workshops and kind of programs that I run is getting them out of that in it and getting them to think about themselves, getting to think if they're a leader, how are they managing themselves before they even start to think about how do they manage someone else. And from there, we can start to see people feeling more content, enjoying themselves again in their job. And wouldn't that be nice as well?
If you look at all the studies, the highest performing teams are usually the happiest, the most content, because contentment is absolutely a target that, and we never used to talk about contentment, or nobody used to ask, how are you in your work? We never used to get asked that sort of thing. But yeah, that's the target. There's a great study called Operation Aristotle, a huge data study that was done by Google. And they wanted to understand what made a high performing team for their data engineers, their software engineers. And it came out with, they were looking at introverts, extroverts, a mix of people, everything like that. And they came out with the realization that there were two factors that overrode everything else. And they were psychological safety, which we've already discussed. So if Google realized about the psychological safety is something, why isn't everybody talking to you, Alison? That's because they need to. And what was the other thing? Conversational turn taking. Again, empowering. So this is my empowerment, accountability, ownership model, empowering everybody to have a voice. And on the back of having a voice, to be heard. And that's what their highest performing teams. And so that's their model for software engineers, for developers. Psychological safety and conversational turn taking. That's what makes a high performing team.
Yeah, well, I'm often talking to leaders and exec teams about, them almost, not speaking up, almost encouraging them to shut up and ask more questions, basically to to know that their teams will have the best ideas, and it's not for them to come up with all of their ideas for the business. They need to empower, they need to listen. I talk about, employee voice, real employee voice, not just an annual survey that asks people a load of stuff that doesn't really go anywhere. Something that's genuine in the moment, get people to ask. I was working with a group, 27 managers last week, and we were talking about having difficult conversations, and just sometimes it's not that they're needing to say this to this person, it's asking them, what is it like for them? Find out what it's actually like for this person as to why they might have done this, whatever it was that the person's done. So I think, you raise a really good point, and it's something that I talk a lot about, is how do we have ourselves and each other in a much more content, as you say, happy place, because that's get the results, that's gets the people are doing the extra mile, which means the results will come in floods. But it takes an innovative leader to know that, and to stop focusing on the results and to focus on your people. It does take a different mindset, but I hope it's on the way.
Yeah. Creativity and innovation are essential. We talk about several different things being the lifeblood of the business, and creativity and innovation are absolutely in there. Of course, people are the lifeblood of the business at the top, but creativity and innovation, yeah. If you don't, the only true thing about change is the pace of change is ever increasing. So if we don't innovate, then we are going to be left behind. Our market is going to shrink. We're not going to gain more return on investment for the same things that we have year on year, the same critical levers. And one of the simple things that was done with us, and it's back in the old corporate days, the banking days, and it was a fantastic, so simple technique. We used to have a meeting a month based at different car manufacturers, because car manufacturers really look after you when you go there. So we used to go to Toyota and Vauxhall and BMW and all these places around the country. And we used to have a team meeting at these places. And we had every single person within our team took a turn to run those meetings. Some people looked forward to it. Some people didn't so much look forward to it, but we all gained. I loved it. Of course, running, nothing better for me than facilitating in any way. And of course, our boss, our director, just sat back, had the opportunity to sit back and just observe and listen and hear and see things that they'd never normally see. And yet, to this day, we still have organizations where the boss, the manager, the leader sits there and runs meetings and facilitates and misses so much. And there are those growth opportunities, progression opportunities, and skill strengthening opportunities as well for everybody around that table.
I think something that springs to my mind when you're saying that, Sean, is that's what causes the stress. When people are trying to manage a whole organization, I always sort of think about it as, they're at the front with the big flag. Come on, everybody, follow me. That's so stressful. But actually, if you've got everyone involved, I use a lot of the similar things around sharing the chairing responsibility, get people accountable, get peer accountability, get people involved. People will come up with some smashing ideas that are amazing. Sometimes they'll come up with some that are not so good, but that's okay. You just give them that opportunity. And then when they know that they can bring their creative side to work, oh my gosh, they'll bring their creative side to work, and then other things will happen. But when people are stressed, so it brings us full circle, they're not creative. They don't come up with extra ideas. They're just stuck in the same old. I sometimes ask questions, as I'm sure you do in businesses, to say, why are you doing it like, well, not so much why are you doing it like that, because that makes me sound like I know. I'm just posing a question in terms of, why do you do it like that? And then when they all go, oh, I don't know. I think we've just always done it like that. Right. Okay. So, and is it causing everyone to feel stress? Yes. Right. Let's have a think. So I think it really does give up all people an opportunity to think about what does cause stress.
Absolutely. It's so true. We lose 54 out of every 100 days, sick days, to symptoms of stress, anxiety, or depression, but they're not recognized as such, and they're not treated as such. If you turn up at a doctor or GP and present with certain symptoms, the doctor might not diagnose it as stress because you're turning up with physical symptoms. So we treat the symptoms, we don't treat the cause. And that's happened for decades upon decades. Now, we realize that by creating a psychologically safe space, by making it an open atmosphere where people can dive into, there's no such thing as a bad idea. Apart from that was terrible. You can have those jokes, you can have that banter, but that's the only way that. That's a fantastic way that we get people coming up with these. Google Mail, Gmail was invented by one of its engineers when Google used to give, I think it was 10% of their time. People could take it off, employees could take it off just to work on something. And one of their engineers came up with the concept of Gmail. And so that's exactly what can happen. The more that we do this, the more that, and I love what you said, the peer accountability. And we do leadership academies, we do management academies. Why? Because we want every single team. And we work on psychological contracts, getting people to understand, leaders to understand that their people do not work for the company. They don't work for the organization. Their people work for them, because people work for people. And so by instigating a team charter, a psychological contract, making it the most supportive team workplace environment, atmosphere that we can, that will have exponential effects for us, whether it's creativity, innovation, profit, whatever the key performance indicators are. Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love that, Alan.
So we've probably, with a range of people that might be listening today, we might be thinking about yourself. We might be thinking about, you might be an employee and feel like you haven't got a voice. We dare you to go and be that person who steps forward and says, I want to have a chat with you about X, because I know there's people putting off things. I often talk to people and they'll tell me about this idea they've got or this situation. And my first question is, have you told somebody else? Or have you asked? And they go, no. Right. So if you're listening today and you've got an idea or something that you're putting off sharing with your manager or your team, if you're a business owner and you're somebody who've got maybe employees where it's not quite going the way you want it to go, we need to have these conversations. We need to be able to put ourselves forward, because otherwise we get stressed because we're not speaking up. I mean, I hear this so often that people they are actually stressed because it's like their bodies know or their minds know that they're not doing the right thing. So they feel stressed, but just do it. It almost comes back to our Nike, doesn't it, Sean? Just do it. I love that. So before we finish, tell us a quick bit more about your new book that's just been launched.
So available from all good Amazon online retailers such as Amazon. It's the subjects that affected me the most throughout my career. Unmanaged stress, no knowledge. So I've made it an absolute point to study it, to understand how I could control my stress more, manage it more, which is where I've come to eventually. So we talk about, not only do we talk about what stress is, the history, the gender differences, there's also loads of great takeaways. How do we manage it? And one of the most impacting theories that I use almost every single day is a theory called anti-fragility, or becoming anti-fragile. And I explain all about that from Tal Ben-Shahar, which again, you can have a look on YouTube and on the internet. Everything about Tal's work is almost open source. It is open source. It's fabulous. And it's about using stress to make us anti-fragile, which then completely flips the mindset so that we look for stress. We put ourselves forward into those places that Alison was referring to in order to make us stronger, or indeed just more content, able to relax, finding that eye in the space of a hurricane, to find the oasis in the middle of that desert. There's so many different ways that you can look at this, but becoming anti-fragile, it's an absolutely real thing that we can aim towards, we can practice, and there's no absolute. And that's the beautiful thing, of course. There's no perfection. There's just the stage that you get to, and then you can have a rest, and then you can keep going whenever you want. So aim for anti-fragility is my target. That's my lifelong target, and that's what I do in every single conversation that I have with other people. Brilliant.
Oh, well, if you want to have a look at Sean's book, we will put the links in the show notes. So definitely, I'm going to get a copy of that, because I'm sure it complements the work that I do. And, you know, I'm always keen to read other people's work and see where they take it. So brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today, Sean. Thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts and your ideas and your wisdom with us.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the time. Really grateful.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we have these conversations just to help people not feel alone. I mean, that's one of my biggest goals for this whole thing.
We are connected. That's the big truth. We are always connected.
Definitely. Thank you for listening and sharing in this episode of Mental Wealth. Remember, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcast. My last question to you is, what is the one small thing that you can take action on from this episode? Message me on Instagram or through our website with questions you'd like me to explore. You'll find the links in the show notes. I'll be back with more tools and tips to make sense of your mind in the next episode. In the meantime, be kind to yourself. Bye for now.